Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Close to Broke. My name is Kieran. Fun day should be in store for us. Game is getting cracked off here, getting rolling. It'll be exciting whether I win or lose. Let's get into playing some poker because that's why you're here anyways. Big stakes, Lucky Lady Casino. Let's get into it. Private game, let's go!
As we're getting into today's action, I just want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming through and constantly supporting these videos. If you haven't already, make sure to click the like button down below. Let me promise you guys one thing in today's episode. As opposed to some of the last vlogs you guys have been seeing from the Lucky Lady, this is much different. The pots are massive, the swings are even bigger. Today's vlog is the best vlog we've ever made. It is, I promise. So share it with a friend, get ready, grab some popcorn, grab yourself some sody pop, some Pepsi, Coke, whatever you drink, and let's hop into the first hand of the session. Here we are. The straddle is onto 20. The hijack limps. Now I'm going to go ahead and isolate that limp in the cutoff with king jack off. I make it $100 to go. The limper calls. We're going to a flop that is pretty good. Jack 9-6. All I can see is top pair with a pretty solid kicker. I go ahead and c-bet to 125, a little bit bigger than I would usually do so, but I have a little bit of a feeling that my opponent's going to be sticky and not let me off easy. My opponent does end up making the call. We're going off to a turn card that is the Queen of Hearts. Brings a backdoor flush draw, and it does put an overcard to my pair. I make it 175. Looking to target all inferior jacks, all random hands that contain a pair plus a straight draw. My opponent goes ahead and makes a call. Once again, we're going off to a river card that is a pretty beautiful card. It's a 4 of spades. It's a brick. My opponent checks it over to me, and I think, generally speaking, checking this is like 99% of the time fine. But in the game flow with the dynamics here, I realize that my opponent might get a little sticky, a little overzealous with a hand like maybe ace-9, 10-9, those kind of medium marginal holdings that I think my opponent might be a little more prone to calling. So I want to go ahead and throw it a little value bet once again, super thin I realize, to 250. My opponent thinks about it for a moment before deciding to make the fold. Well, if the opponent's going to fold, it makes me feel like maybe my bet's a little too thin. We're never getting called by a pair that's inferior to ours. It's probably not that good. Either way, taking the first pot down, we love to see it. Let's go. The straddle is on. I'm on the button, and we look down at ace-3 off. Look, it's pretty, yeah, this is a bad hand. There's no two ways about it. But on the button, any ace seems like a fine enough hand to go ahead and open, because we're going to be opening the button pretty wide. Seems like ace-high is a good one to open it with. I'm going to get $60 to go. Both the big blind and the straddler make the call. We're going off to a flop that comes queen 8-4 rainbow. Action ends up checking through here. The turn card comes at 3 of diamonds. I now improve to a pair, but this does bring a backdoor flush draw as well as some backdoor straight draws. It gets to the straddle, who decides to lead out for a pretty juicy sizing of 150, going bigger than half the size of the pot here, going pretty large if I'm being quite honest. I go ahead and make the call here, but things aren't going to plan as the big blind calls as well. Well, we're pretty much over this hand at this point. The river card comes out the 6 of spades. This time, once again, the big blind checks. The straddle now bets 500 and the action's on me. Not a whole lot of hands I can really bet here for value on the river. Outside of 7-5, I just don't ever see a queen jack or a ace queen, even for that matter, being my opponent's range, as he didn't 3-bet that pre-flop. A hand like queen jack is just far too weak to go for this sizing on the river. And yeah, after quite a bit of tanking, a little bit of thinking, I just think that, hey, man, my opponent's just got to have a pretty good hand here. It sucks when our opponent is only representing one specific hand. It just makes it more likely for them to be bluffing because there's more hands or combinations of hands they can be bluffing with. But I go ahead and make a fold here. Again, pretty easy, but I'm proud of myself for even thinking about it. The big blind ends up folding instantly, which makes me feel a little bit disappointed. But my opponent here ends up showing 7-5 of diamonds. We did a really good job of ranging our opponent. We put money in the middle when we were ahead and folded when we were behind. So pretty happy with that. GG's. Well, it seems like my spidey senses are really tingling today and they're on point. Hopefully it continues to help us as the session goes along. In this following hand, once again, I have a bad ace here. Ace-9 offsuit. We're playing 5 or 6-handed at this point, and we're also playing the stand-up game. In the stand-up game, our version is referred to as the army game. It's pretty simple. If you lose, you owe everybody that's on the table $50 that played the game. Pretty simple. It's just like the stand-up game. Either way, I look down at my hand under the gun. I go ahead and make it ace $30 to go with ace-9 off, the cutoff, and the button call. And at this point, I know instantly that our opponent here from the small blind, who's very capable of going crazy, is going to be 3-betting like 100% of hands, with this dead money in the middle also being that my opponent is one of the final people in the stand-up game. I think he's going to go for it, which he does. He makes it 250. The big blind cold calls. The big blind, Mr. Darius, he ends up cold calling as well. He's also the other last player in the stand-up game. These two are looking to duke it out, and with the action on me, although my hand's really bad, I have a really good feeling that I'm honestly ahead of these two players. Sure, ace-9's not great, and I would never advise anyone ever 4-betting ace-9 offsuit in any traditional game under any circumstance. In this given dynamic with the game that's being played and the stand-up game going on, hell, if there's ever a time, it's now. I go ahead and go all in, 4-bet jamming to $1,650. The action falls back to the small blind, who decides to call pretty quickly, and then we go for a tank off. Mr. Darius thinks about it for quite some time and says, hey, I'm thinking about it, I am thinking about it, but my hand's awful. Well, Mr. Darius, you're going to have to prove it to me by calling or folding and telling me about it later. Well, Darius is a man with two cojones the size of my head, honestly, because he ends up making the call and showing 8-3 offsuit. What the heck? Well, somehow, by some miracle, as we mentioned, a good feeling, I suppose, that spider sense tingling that I'm talking about, our opponent from the small blind shows king 10 of diamonds, and by some grace of God, by some miracle, I am ahead. 3 ways all in. Yes, this monstrous pot with over 5,000 in the middle. Oh my God. We're going off. We decide to run out 2 boards here. The first board comes out Jack, 5, deuce. Turn is a 9. And the river is a deuce. We lock up half this pot. We guarantee ourselves a profit. The second board comes out 7, 6, 4. Turn is a 7 of hearts. We need to fade just a few outs, and the river comes. An 8 of hearts. Oh my God. Oh man. That's painful right there. I mean, losing to king 10, one thing, but 8-3 offsuit. This isn't blackjack, Darius. Well, that one is going to sting a bit, but hey, I had ace-9 off. I got it in 3 ways, and I won. I won somehow. We won. We made profit on the hand. I can't complain about it. This next hand, once again, Darius is involved by limping under the gun. A quick fun story that I think I should mention about Darius. Just after finishing his session here with us, he racks up and takes some money over to the baccarat table. Max bet the dragon and hit it. Not just for a couple bucks, $20,000. Shout out to my boy Darius. Anyways, back to real time here. We look down at ace king off next to act. I go and isolate to 50. 2 callers. Eventually the action gets over to the big blind, who 3-bets to 350. At this point, Mr. Darius ends up folding, and the action's back on me. And we have about 2,000 in front of us. I'm really uncomfortable. I don't know what the perfect 4-bet sizing is. Feels like we're playing 10-20 in reality. Everything's bigger anyway. So what feels like about 100 big blinds to me, I'm sure it can't be that big of a punt. I just go all in here. I don't know what sizing to make it. My opponents really put us in a tough bind here by going 7x. It feels like 700 is ridiculous. It feels like 800 or 900 puts me in a ridiculous SPR going to a flop. So all that to be said, I go ahead and just make the jam for 2,000. Action folds back to our opponent, who pretty quickly makes the fold. Happy for that one. Take some more money. Down without any action. We're racing through today's session. The straddle is on. Under the gun, the small blind, and the button all limp. The action's on me here in the big blind. We look down at queen 10 suited. A suited Broadway. You don't need to hear me say this over and over again, but it's a beautiful, easy isolation raise to 110. The button and the small blind call. We're going off to a flop here that comes 6-4 deuce with 2 spades. Flopping 2 overs, and the third another ball draw. A really good spot, I think, in a hand and a texture and a dynamic like this for me to just check. I don't even get the option, as our opponent for the small blind, Mr. Darius, leads $40 into me. There's like $1 billion in the middle. I think calling here is okay. Raising is maybe a little better sometimes, but in real time, I just call, the button folds. We're going off to a turn card that's not that great. Pairs the board. Here come the 4 of clubs. Once again, my opponent decides to lead up for 35. I do something I don't like. I end up making the call, but let me tell you why I don't like this. I think raising here is fun. Again, I don't think I'm ever going to have fours here. Maybe sometimes I can have sixes, and I don't know, I'm never going to have deuces. But playing aggressively with a hand like aces or kings or queens for that matter would be in my best interest. Being in a position and having underrep my hand on the flop, if I had something like that, I'd want to raise here. By just calling, I think I play my flush a little face up. If I hit it on the river, I could bet my opponent can fold a lot of like 7-6, 8-6 suited kind of hands. Like I said, raising makes the most sense. It also gets him to be charged with his straight draws. All that to be said, I just call and the river card is a 9 of spades, bringing in my flush. At this point, the opponent randomly blasts here for a big sizing of 300. We have a pretty clear spot to go for a value raise here. I think we'd be really, really foolish to ever think about just calling. Maybe if I had some kind of sick live read, it's like permissible by law, technically, to just flat here. But against our opponent and considering that I have significantly under-repped my draw, I guess, I go ahead and raise it. I make it 800. My opponent pretty quickly folds though. Happy to take down yet another pot. Things are going swimmingly. Once again, we are getting intertwined with another fun hand. I look down at King Jack off here from the button. Gets folded to me. I make it $60 to go over to the straddle. Only the straddler calls. And we're going off to a flop that comes ace 10 3 with 2 diamonds. I don't remember if I had a diamond in my hand, but I do remember that I had a red king. I decided to c-bet for a down bet sizing of 50. My opponent calls. We're going off to a turn card that comes the 5 of hearts. Doesn't change a whole lot to this board texture, and one thing that I can pretty comfortably say is that my opponent has pretty much capped himself to a 1-pair holding. And when that happens, I'm going to go blast, blast, blast. I go ahead and blast for 250, going bigger here, going about the size of the pot. My opponent pretty quickly makes a call. I'm looking to blast on all straightening card rivers, all Broadway rivers, as well as all diamonds, and it looks like it's come the perfect card as it comes in 9 of diamonds. At this point, like I said, I don't know if I have the king of diamonds. That's probably important, but I'm playing it and I'm acting like I do. I'm acting like I have king jack of diamonds. I make it 700 and I quickly realize that maybe I'm even more uncomfortable than my opponent right now. Sitting here with king high, I have no idea if I have the king of diamonds. You guys can see that I don't. But my opponent eventually folds, so looks like we're firing on all cylinders today. Our bluffs are working out, even when we're going big, and our value is working out as well. Wow, this session is really heading in the right direction. Much needed. If you haven't done so already, make sure to click the like button and drop a comment down below, because that's the best place we can talk. Outside of that, you guys can always follow me on Instagram. It's where I answer all my DMs. I talk to you folks a ton, and I post, and you guys can see more often what I'm doing in the world. Outside of that, we've got some more hands to break down, so let's hop into this next one. The action ends up folding to the small blind, who decides to open at 80. The big blind calls, and I'm in the straddle, and we look down at king 10 of diamonds. I'm telling you, I'm a sucker for this hand, specifically in this suit, so I'm going to 3-bet. I make it $300 to go, going a little bit larger. I'm in position, so there is a little bit of opportunity to maybe just make it 240, but hell, these players are going to be pretty solid, and even if they weren't, I've got to charge them to get frisky with their frisky holdings. Luckily for me, the small blind folds, but unluckily for me, the aggressive player in the big blind calls. We're going off to a flop here that comes out queen 7-5 with 2 diamonds. Great flop for our hand, and with the action checked over to me, I do have a little bit of a tough time throwing on my bet here. I'm fumbling with my chips, but I definitely know I want to down bet here. I don't need to go massive. Going anywhere from 20 to 30% seems optimal, so I just bet 175. At this moment, my opponent has the action on him, and with that and the spotlight on him, he is not shying away. He makes it $500 to go. Once again, the action falls on me, and I have a bit of a tough decision with about $1,600 in my stack. I think that calling here is definitely reasonable. That leaves me with somewhere in the neighborhood of like a 7.5 or an 80% SPR, which is, you know, pretty reasonable. But in real time, I realize that I don't want to get blown off my equity. I don't have the nut flush draw, but I have something close enough to it. And I have 2 overs, or at least 1 over, as well as some backdoor little straighty possibilities. I think that honestly, it's just best to have a bluff here like this. There's very little bluff candidates that are better than this one. That And my opponent could have maybe read into weakness as the way I manipulated the chips. And moreover, I have a flush draw. We're not that deep. YOLO. I go all in, 3-betting a flop, which is almost never a bluff, to 1600. And luckily for us, our opponent snap folds. Another big pot heading in my direction with, once again, not having to look at all 5 cards. We'll definitely take it. Sure as hell, I'm not going to be the one complaining. We are getting into the best part of today's session. By far and away, some of the sickest, most exciting hands we've played probably ever on the vlog. So, as I've said many a time, get ready, enjoy yourselves for some pretty fun poker. And this next hand, once again, the straddle's on, under the gun opens to 60. The big blind calls, and I'm in said straddle. And I look down at ace-5 off, good enough to call. I go ahead and oblige. The flop comes out pretty trash as it comes king-queen 8. Hard for this to be a poker vlog hand, I know, especially when the action checks through. Luckily for us, we improve. Ace of diamonds on the turn, top pair. Pretty crappy kicker, if we're being honest. The action once again ends up getting checked through. Kieran, why is this hand even in the vlog? I mean, I barely know myself. Well, it's because the big blind leads for 115. I think we have a pretty easy call. I go ahead and do just that. Out of nowhere, unbeknownst to me, the opponent to my left has some devious plans as he decides to raise to $515. The big line folds and I go deep into the tank, and I think there's some really great, really funny table talk audio to go over. So let's throw it over to that.
Good raise, man.
0-0 game.
If you're good, you're bluffing with jacks and 10s. What the hell do you have, sir? What do you have? What do you have, sir? What do you have? You better talk to me. What do you have? What do you have?
As you folks can hear from the audio, I'm trying to think of the hands that I can beat, and honestly, there's quite a few. I think my opponent's good enough to turn jacks and 10s into bluffs. There's obviously an opportunity that my opponent turned a backdoor flush draw or something like that into a bluff. The one thing you need, more than anything, to win a championship is defense. And today, I am Shaquille O'Neal. I am Kobe Bryant. I am Michael Jordan. I am here to play the defense that we all need and love in the stand-up game. I make the call. Show me the goods. Our opponent chuckles and mucks. We win a big pot. Woo! That one was tough. That one was one of the trickiest river bluffs I've seen. Usually these don't work out in my favor, but after talking it through, that one was a pretty sick little spot, and I'm happy to have it on the vlog. Things are coming to a close, but whew, trust me, we saved the best for last. But until then, we have another hand to go over. I make it $30 to go with king 8 suited. The button 3-bets to 130. I make the call. The flop looks pretty good to me. 8-7-3. We flop top pair in a backdoor flush draw. I go ahead and check call a $75 C-bet to a turn card that is beautiful. The 4 clubs. We now improve ourselves to the second nut flush draw on top of already having top pair a pretty good kicker. I once again decide to check it over to my opponent who bets 200, and I think we have an easy call here. Raising is, pretty decent sometimes, but honestly, raising doesn't get a whole lot better to fold too often. The river card comes the 7 of spades. Like I said, because we didn't raise a turn, we have set up pretty clearly a spot for us to check call the river. By not raising the turn as well, I call, and the pot is pushed in my direction. Once again, today's session has been full of a lot of really tough spots for sure, and spots where we just have top pair and we get the call down. Poker's not that hard, is it? Well, you know what they say, we save the best for last, and this is the main event of the evening. In this next hand, the straddle is on, which makes the hands bigger, as you can see. Early position makes it 60 bones to go. The cutoff, once again, one of the aggressive players decides to 3-bet to 200. I'm in the small blind, and we look down at pocket kings. I think that sometimes slow playing is okay, but I think when I call here, I just invite the initial raiser to come along as well. And look, slow playing is reasonable sometimes, especially against super aggressive opponents, but out of position, multi-way with kings seems like a recipe for disaster. So I go ahead and just stick to the normal game here. I 4-bet to 600. Not going too big, not going too small. Only the cutoff makes a call here without much thought, and we're going off to a flop that comes 9-7 deuce with 2 clubs and a spade. I do in fact have the king of clubs, which makes me play this hand for the rest of the hand in this specific fashion. Considering that I have succumb to this fact, this reality, no matter what happens against a specific opponent, I don't care what happens on the run out, I'm going to call. I'm going to get all my money in the middle, and I have to accept that. That is a problem. That is my fate. Some people won't appreciate that. They say, you know, blah, 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 BBB, you know, whatever. But hey, against some players, this is what you do. You close your eyes and you say call. And that's just how I'm going to play this hand. I go ahead and check it over to my opponent, and it seems like everything is going off to where we expected it to. Our opponent bets 400 for a down bet here of about a third. I go ahead and make the call. The turn card comes E4 of hearts. Doesn't change anything that I can possibly think of. I once again check, and once again my opponent obliges with the aggression by blasting into me for 900. Once again, not a whole lot of really theatrics to go over here. I think if I raise, I destroy everything here, the entire plan. My opponent's going to snap fold all of his bluffs. I call. The river card comes E10 of diamonds. Once again, a little bit worrisome as pocket 10s improves, 10-9 suited improves, but outside of those two holdings, I mean, my opponent's just not going to have a hand like Jack 8. I don't think my opponent's going to have a hand like 8-6 and just go crazy. So once again, everything has been set up to just fall on the sword and die trying, or blast off into an eternity, thank the poker gods for this opportunity, and win a big pot. I go and check it over to my opponent once again, and he goes all in, having me covered. I have about 3,000 in my stack. I beat my opponent into the pot. We call all in. My opponent gives the old head nod, table tap, GG's, no rees, a massive 9,000, almost $10,000 pot heading in my direction. Oh my goodness. This is a blessing. We feel so happy. Things working out in our favor. I don't know if I played my best today. I definitely didn't play my worst. It's obviously much better and easier to feel that way when the deck is just cooperating. I feel like I had purpose to my play today, which I don't do all that often. So, fun way to end today's session, and I've got a ton to talk to you folks about now. But first, I gotta head over to my dad's dinner, a birthday party, but I'll talk to you guys there.
Do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. Too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy.
Okay, so I'm at dinner with my dad. It's his birthday. I talked about that, I think, at some point, or at least you guys noticed from the B-roll. We have some poker to talk about. So we were into the game for an astonishing $2,000. That's it. I know it's a miracle that happened, but we'll definitely take it. We were out of the game for 94.25. Ending up with one of the biggest wins of my poker career, and definitely the biggest I've had this year. Yeah, just had a bunch of players that put me to the test today. A couple times we ended up getting lucky, and I ended up making some maybe small folds, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, but some pretty nasty little folds with top pair in a couple spots when I was actually drawing dead, which was something to be proud of because I don't do that too often. As you guys already know, I'm going to try to leave this at the end of the video so I don't clog the beginning of the video up, but if you guys want to play with me, you guys can always play with me on the splash spots. But if you guys are in person and want to play with me in Southern California, you guys can play with me at the Lucky Lady every single Sunday at 1 p.m. We host a 2-5 game. I just pretty much go there to blast off, and the last one I lost. What? Hustler Hollywood. What? Do you guys see that? Shout out to the Hustler. But yeah, the last time we were around, I ended up blasting off like a lot. We lost like 2K or something ridiculous in the last time we played. So either way, if you guys want to come down and have fun, you'll know where to find me. BSB giveaways ending soon. If you guys need some information on that, I've talked about it a bunch. Give yourself a shot at getting an opportunity to come to the WSB for free. Hope you guys have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching today's video. It was a blast. Happy birthday to my lovely dad. Thank you so much for watching and supporting these videos. I've got to get back in there because these folks have had quite a few drinks, and I'm DD. See you guys soon. I love you dearly. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also, it means more to me than any of that. Stay happy, healthy. More importantly, run good at the tables, y'all. Deuces.
And exposed with cat like a cheetah. They smoke my partner like reefer. Dímelo porque o no entiendo, mi gente must really need Jesus. He shed real blood, I never seen the crypt and I believe it. It's too easy. Too easy. Too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy.